Hi, hello, and welcome back to a podcast where I talk about going from corporate drone to corporate dropout and everything in between in my business world. You know it, you love it. Welcome back to Chaos and Fuckery. And as you may notice, or you may not have, I took the week off. Why? Well, because I went to Hawaii and I had this big brain content creator idea that I was going to record while I was there and, record with my little wireless mic and off my phone and record from our balcony or something like that. And I didn't do any of that. I had this big brain idea that I was going to record this whole Pokemon Go series there too, and I disconnected from content, from business, from everything really going on at home other than my husband. And honestly, I even disconnected from the people that were there. If you weren't in my room with me, you probably didn't hear from me unless you were at the wedding. And that was the only time I talked to the people that were there, and I needed that because I've mentioned in previous episodes, I'm doing this Kaizen challenge, and I've gotten really into researching kind of my Wicca roots and getting back into tarot. Look at this pretty deck. She's gorgeous. And I've gotten a lot back into all of that stuff, and a lot of that is very spiritual, very grounded, living one with nature. And Hawaii as a state is very one with nature, leave it better than you started. And I just wanted to connect with that, connect with the gorgeousness of the islands. Will I be flying back to Hawaii anytime soon when I have islands like Aruba and Bonaire near me? Probably not. I would rather visit those other islands at this current moment, but that does not negate how gorgeous the islands of Hawaii are. And, when you take care of them and be an ethical tourist, if you will, it is a lovely culture and beautiful islands. And that was what I was there to reconnect with. Yes, I was there for a family wedding, but I was taking my own kind of spiritual journey to reconnect and see if this right here, this business, this path that I'm on is actually truly what I wanted to do. And the answer is, with some spiritual guidance, it is yes. I really needed to connect with that for myself. I needed to see the world from a different perspective that had nothing to do with my husband's perspective, nothing to do with, my family's perspective, and just look inward. And that is where I got to. But it is not a Saturday episode, it is a Tuesday episode, which means we're talking about fitness and the world as it is right now in the fitness space. And I want to talk about walkable cities because I don't live in an area currently where I can do the walkable city thing. I can't walk out my door and walk to go pick up a few groceries and then walk back to my house safely. And the funny thing is people always talk about how when they're on vacation, they eat so much that they're gonna gain weight and that they're never active because all they're doing is sitting poolside and drinking. I am the opposite style person when it comes to vacations. It's not because they're not relaxing, but I tend to I tend to vacation in places that are extremely walkable. So I don't drive when I'm on vacation usually. I don't, DoorDash when I'm on vacation. I will go wander right in Hawaii. We were in Waikiki, so we are obviously in a more walkable area, and that was why I chose Waikiki over some of the other more off the beaten path areas of Hawaii. Yes, those places are closer to things like nature hikes, but they required you to drive to something like get coffee. And I wanted to be able to just wander and explore and find new shops and find local shops and local restaurants and support kind of the local economy without having to go to a big food store. And, my family was all staying at Airbnbs and they went to Costco and things like that while they were there. And I get it. When you're staying at an Airbnb, you need to go do a bulk run, especially in a big family like mine. But I chose Waikiki because of the walkability, and we need more of those. If we ever have a chance at dealing with the obesity epidemic here in the States, we need more cities that are walkable, that protect our nature and aren't so consumerism capitalist heavy. We need bike paths so that people can bike to school, bike to, their work if they live close enough. And that's not the case in most areas in the States, at least not affordable ones. Because yes, if you live in the middle of downtown any major city name here, it probably is walkable to your work or whatever. But most people can't afford to live in that area, and if they can, it's not super family friendly, so that you have property or anything like that kids, it's really like a singles haven in downtown areas, right? Bars and quick 7-Elevens and things like that. It's not necessarily a place that you would stay forever. However, once you move out to the suburbs, nothing is walkable anymore. And that is a major need we have. Because when I go on vacation, I end up losing weight. Not only because I'm not bored at home, surfing DoorDash, looking for my next food, but because I have walkable cities. I'm walking to get coffee in the morning. I'm walking to the beach. I'm walking to the pool. I'm doing stairs because, ironically, at least in Hawaii, they build up and not out. So the pool is on floor 3 rather than down at the bottom. And I would take, the stairs when it comes to, 3 flights of stairs if I'm in the lobby. And it's the same when I cruise, right? A lot of people talk about cruises being like an over gluttonous thing. They don't have to be. Because the elevators are usually so slow, it is easier to just take the stairs. And you're walking all across the ship all day. And yes, you have unlimited food and in some cases unlimited drinks, but you can make good choices there too, because the unlimited food is also unlimited fruit usually in these tropical cruises at least. And yes, unlimited dessert is a thing too, but you can kind of get around that with the way you walk and, exercise up and down the stairs, getting to and from the different places on a ship. However, ships are different, right? I want to get back to the walkable city. That is, to me, a key component in fixing or starting to fix the obesity epidemic here in the States. Because we are not meant as human beings to sit at our desks for 10 to 12 hours a day. And yes, things like walk pads now exist that make it easier for people to walk and work, but it's still not 100% easy. Because if you're the one presenting, if you're trying to walk and talk and work, and you're stuck in meetings all day that you have to present or that you have to be an active participant in, not just listening, you have to come off that walk pad at some point. You are going to struggle to either navigate while you're walking or talk while you're walking, and not just, obviously you're not walking high paces, but at some point, that becomes a problem. So I think, especially after being in Hawaii and coming back to my scale being down, we should have more walkable cities. We should have healthier options. Because one of the things, if I'm traveling in the States and I'm not allowed to go anywhere else in the world, one of the reasons I would choose Hawaii, despite the massive flight time that makes it very difficult when it comes to time changes and to get steps in and everything else fitness related, because, airport food is not always the healthiest and things like that. Hawaiian culture, at least when it comes to food, is very influenced by Asian culture. At least in, where we were in Waikiki, there was a lot of poke, there was a lot of sushi, there was a lot of, dishes that aren't heavy in portion size. Or if they were very well balanced. I had a meal at a local restaurant that we found when we were wandering around one night that was chicken thighs, rice, and leafy greens. Perfectly well balanced, but a pretty large portion, but the large portion wasn't the rice. The large portion was the chicken thighs and the leafy greens. Now, did I pair that with a homemade vodka seltzer? Absolutely. But one drink a night with a big hefty portion of protein and vegetables isn't really gonna harm you that much, especially when it's vodka. Like, let's be real here. It is a single shot of vodka in a drink about this tall. And if I have the time, I'll insert the picture of that dish here. But that influence of different, cultures influencing the food in Hawaii made it so that you weren't seeing a lot of the McDonald's and the Burger Kings and the, typically gluttonous things that you see almost on every corner here in the States. The only thing you really saw, which kind of made me laugh frequently, was Starbucks. And the reason that makes me laugh is because Hawaii is one of the only US states that can actually grow and roast their own coffee beans. So that has the appropriate like climate to do that. So I always found it kind of funny when I would see a Starbucks, because why would you go to a Starbucks when you can go to a local shop and get much, much better coffee? And that's kind of where I sit. There are states that are doing it right. And you may not agree, because from my understanding, Hawaii is a blue state. You may not agree with their politics, but you can agree that, you know, utilizing your local resources like coffee and utilizing, you know, walkable cities where you can wander to and from and there's plenty of options. There was a lot of food trucks present where we were in Hawaii, where you can not only support a local business, but find different options throughout the week as different food trucks moved in and out of that location. So there were a lot of Asian inspired dishes, which typically are healthier. You didn't see a lot of the McDonald's. I think I saw one McDonald's, and we walked miles throughout the time that we were there. I saw a McDonald's and I saw a Cheesecake Factory, which are two chains. I mean, McDonald's I expected, but Cheesecake Factory was a weird one. And those were the only like two chain restaurants that I saw outside of the Starbucks that was in my hotel. The rest were local, the rest were home grown, if you will. There was even like a homegrown version of Chipotle where the food was a lot better. So I think, right, when it comes to building a business in the fitness space right now, if you have clients that are in walkable cities, encourage them to utilize that to their benefit. Encourage them to get active. Maybe find an active hobby. Like I almost picked up, you know, surfing just for fun because it's something I've always wanted to do, but the waves here in Florida kind of suck. So it's not worth learning here. And when you find hobbies like that, even as an active gamer, right, I often encourage gamers to start with something like Ring Fit Adventure or VR gaming because it's a way to incorporate activity into the things that they already enjoy and love. If your client loves walking, tell them, hey, if you're in a place that's safe, because not all cities are safe to walk. Not all suburban areas are really safe to, you know, do long distance walking or go to the grocery store where all you do is walk or bike. But if you are in an area or you can easily get to an area where you can do something like that, that is an easy way to incorporate movement. Or if they're a corporate job worker, ask if their facility has something like a walk pad. I know when I was in the office all the time, mine did. And I started utilizing those when I first started my fitness journey back up again in adult life. And those were super helpful to me. While we were limited to 30 minutes and you could only get so much done in 30 minutes, 30 minutes on a walk pad is 30 minutes you're not sitting at your desk wasting away. And just simple ways to get more movement in. In the fitness space, we like to focus on things like hardcore, like high intensity HIIT workouts. High intensity interval training is HIIT, but we like to focus on the high intensity workouts, the burn as many calories, the, what's it called? What is that phrase? No pain, no gain. That kind of style of working out and losing weight. And that is not the way to do it. Someone made a joke about why do people have a gym membership when you can just go to a theme park? And when you live close to a theme park and are an annual pass holder, that is a fantastic way to start to lose weight. Simply just going to the theme park, if you're not one that like spends a ton of money on theme park food, simply just going to a theme park every day if you're close by and have an annual pass is about the same price as a gym membership, or a decent gym membership at least. Obviously Planet Fitness and things like that are cheaper, but I pay about the same per month for my gym membership as I do for my universal annual pass. So at the end of the day, I'd much rather, if I lived a little bit closer, go walk around Universal every day to get my steps in, or work from, you know, Darkmoor at Epic Universe if we had annual passes for that, then I would, you know, work from a treadmill. It's much more immersive, it's much more entertaining, and you don't feel like you're working out. So when it comes to, you know, walkable cities, if it's something you enjoy, I want to go walk to get some ice cream. Get a small dish of ice cream and walk back. It's adding that extra movement throughout the day that I think if we started to rethink our infrastructure here in the States would change the game for the obesity epidemic. As a fitness coach and someone building the business right now, it doesn't sell to say, hey, go get a VR headset, because you're not getting coaching from me at that point. But it does work. And it's hard for me as a business owner to kind of wrangle with that. These things that are somewhat free or one-time payments or whatever it is that you're looking for at the time do actually work, especially for beginners. Walking is a workout. Walkable cities will change the game for the obesity epidemic here in the States. But no one wants to talk about that stuff. No one wants to talk about, changing the price of food will in fact change the outcome when it comes to the obesity epidemic. Ozempic's not the problem, but it's also not the solution or other versions of it. And at the end of the day, when it comes to building a fitness, like people are worried about AI taking fitness coaches' jobs. People are worried about Ozempic taking fitness coaches' jobs. And none of that matters, right? Ozempic doesn't matter. Surgery doesn't matter if you can't maintain what it helps you do. If you can't change your own lifestyle, it won't matter when you come off. And this idea, and I'm not a medical doctor, I'm just saying my own personal opinion here. This idea that Ozempic should be a lifelong drug and you should always be on a maintenance dose, I do believe, me personally, not medical professional, is a ploy to constantly have people paying for the drug. It is not, I don't think any weight loss solution should have to be a permanent solution for you to maintain your weight loss. Any tool, you shouldn't have to permanently track calories the rest of your life. Spot checking, returning to it when you have physical goals again, absolutely. But it's not something you should have to do every day of your life once you get to where you want to go to maintain it. You should be able to learn the tools, learn the portioning, learn different things that will help and guide you so that you don't have to do that every day of your life. That's where that whole intuitive eating concept comes in. And people don't do intuitive eating quite right. Because yes, a lot of people talk about how their body intuitively tells them to eat a whole cake. That's not intuitive eating. That's not listening to hunger cues. That's not, having what you want and also adding what you need and the healthier mindsets when it comes to nutrition. But that doesn't also mean, to the other side of things, that, tracking calories and macros is an eating disorder. Because it's not. It's not disordered eating. It is a tool to help you lose weight. It can be, but it isn't naturally just disordered eating if someone does it. And that's the same thing with walkable cities and walking. Is walking exercise? Absolutely, walking is exercise. How much of an exercise it is depends on you as an individual, right? Just like, is tracking macros and calories an eating disorder or disordered eating? No, not at face value. Same thing with walking. Is walking an exercise? Yes, it absolutely is. Movement is movement. But if you are, say an athlete that just wants to get a little bit of extra movement in, it's not gonna, do much to move the scale or improve your cardiovascular health at that point if you're just walking and wandering. However, it does help someone who maybe has no activity in their day currently. You will see a difference if you go from doing 2,000 steps a day to 10,000 steps a day, and that's all you do. You will see a difference in how you feel, maybe in the scale, depending on your nutrition, and that's why walkable cities are so important. Nutrition is absolutely top tier importance, but if we're talking about exercise, movement, making things easier for people to get movement in, walkable cities, walk pads for every office employee, for all I care. No company would ever do that, but that would be my ideal world, right? Every employee has a walk pad that they can control at their leisure. A lot of businesses are starting to do the stand-up desks, but walk pads, not so much. But if every employee had one, they wouldn't have to worry about 30-minute time slots. Or every employee that wanted one could get one. Because I understand not every employee even wants one. But if you want it, you should be able to get it if you're stuck in an office, every day. And I fully think that's a thing companies should provide and not something you should have to buy yourself. If you're a remote worker and they provide you your desktop setup, that should come with it. Point blank, it should, and that might be a controversial take, but to me, that absolutely should be a thing, because being able to get small pockets of movement in without disrupting your workday, because no company wants you to disrupt their workday, should be a thing. Walkable cities should be a thing. They are key components in addressing the obesity epidemic here in the States. But no one wants to talk about that. No one wants to talk about how the way of life in island culture and, that slowing down, and even in like European cultures, not having to be like hustle and boss babes all the time is actually good for us. Being able to slow down and take a vacation and, do the hippy dippy shit, as some people would put it, where we're one with nature, is a good thing. Not taking vacation is detrimental to all fitness people's mental health, in my opinion. But not just fitness people, just all people in general. As the fitness coach, right, I wouldn't encourage my client to have a weight loss goal for a vacation unless that is just something that they naturally came up with and there's a reasonable amount of time to make that goal for that vacation. Because doing things fast just for a vacation to then binge on your vacation, not so great. But if their plan is to kind of keep in their routine on their vacation, maybe not as strenuous, but like I'm still going to hit my steps every day. I'm only going to have 1 or 2 drinks a day rather than like the no drinks I have at home. If they only make slight modifications when they're on vacation, then coming home is a lot easier. But also there's a chance, at minimum they maintain, but there's also a chance they come back lighter than when they started. Because of all the steps and movement and fun foods that are probably healthier for you than anything you get back at home, you get on those vacations. And that's part of the reason why, like, I as a fitness coach, but also someone who's heavily tied into the mental health space, encourage people to travel outside of outside of their bubble. Not just to see other cultures, but to see, other foods and, see the walkable cities and the impact things like that can have on them, and enjoy a vacation without having to be gorging and gluttonous in that vacation life. Being able to see that you can, in fact, have goals before the vacation, hit the goal, and keep and maintain that goal while on vacation without having to hustle when you get back to get back down, is a great way to show that they have learned the tools and that they know what to do if they stopped coaching, because they can make the right decisions even on vacation to help maintain their lifestyle going forward. It's not going to be a binge off the end of the world. And I learned that about myself this vacation, because I typically, I'm pretty active on vacations, but I definitely will binge a little bit more on, the adult beverages and the food, because food is good. And I didn't do that this time around. And maybe it's because I wasn't at an all-inclusive this time like I usually am. But, as you start to learn the tools as a client in the fitness space, you start to realize that you can do fun things like travel without having to go off the deep end and then yo-yo back to the other side. And that was something I learned about myself. I have gotten out of the yo-yo phases. I haven't traveled a lot, really, in the last few years. I think the last time I cruised was close to 2 years ago. So I did a lot of mental work, and, I've learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about myself while coaching some clients who were coaching for specific events. And I continue to learn more every day as I get new clients, as I learn more about myself, as I learn more in my relationships with other people. As I continue down this path of becoming a business owner, I also continued on the path of being a better person, a better coach, but a better wife, a better family member, just all of the things that I need to be while I am on this journey and to be successful in this journey. And, I have a lot to say about the fitness industry and the fitness space as it is. But the thing is until we start to address the minimum for the people that can't afford all of the big fancy things, we'll never actually make it. The world at large, and I say the world, but really the US is the only one that continues to get fatter and fatter every year. And I don't say that as like a jab. I say that as a realistic, the obesity epidemic is getting worse. Because obviously, like, I'm not jabbing. I have my own transformation that I'm still working on again. And I have done a lot of the yo-yoing thing, but that's where a lot of my perspective comes from. I don't expect entitlement, right? I flew. I got lucky on my way home that the middle seat was empty. So I had a little bit more room, but on the way out, I wouldn't have expected anything from anyone if I got stuck in a middle seat. Thankfully, I didn't, but I was squeezing as tight to my chair as I could, so I didn't bother anybody else's space. And I will continue to do that even living in a smaller body again, because I don't feel like anyone is entitled. I do feel that our governments, both state and federal, us a real fighting chance at beating the epidemic, though. And walkable cities and affordable food are two of those things. And we have neither of them right now, really. Yes, some cities are walkable, but a large majority aren't. And, public transportation where people aren't in cars all the time. And, better systems for people who have to work office jobs so that, you don't get fat sitting at your desk all day. And some of it is people just not wanting to, and some of it is true exhaustion and not having the time, because we live in this hustle culture where people go nonstop and you have no more energy left to even think about the gym, let alone spend 45 minutes to an hour in it. If you even have that, because some people are working multiple jobs to even attempt to afford food. So that's where the governments come in, and then the people can make their own decisions. But right now, looking at the difference even between, two very touristy states, going to Hawaii and going to Florida. Hawaii has done what it needs to protect its islands and protect its cities and, protect its people as much as they can. Even then, a lot of people still aren't happy because of the tourist industry. But what they have done is more than Florida has done. Florida has fully been taken a hold of by consumerism and capitalism and, not caring about our wildlife refuges and our wildlife in general. And those things lead towards things. Caring about those things lean into caring about things like walkable cities. And that is the huge difference between somewhere like Hawaii and somewhere like Florida, where we're constantly destroying Florida. It's no longer the pretty state I grew up in. And the beaches are gross because of tourists and spring breakers. Whereas in Hawaii, while yes, there are some that are more touristy that have been ruined because of tourists, it's not as bad. There's still a lot of beautiful nature and a lot of beautiful culture there. And we need a little bit more of that. We need a lot more of the spiritual, do no harm, leave it better than you got it mentality across the state as a whole. Because I do believe that type of mentality brought to the mainland would help with the obesity epidemic. But that's just my thoughts on, walkable cities and affordable nutrition. Mostly walkable cities, though, because, like I said, I came back and I weighed myself and I'm down partially because I was eating really well. When I was there, I had locally, the coffee wasn't super sugary. It was coffee. Espresso even, and even when I would drink a beverage, a lot of the mixers and stuff were local sodas or things like that I would use in my drinks that were a lot less sugary. I was walking 10 to 15,000 steps a day. Even if I spend half my day at the beach and pool sitting around doing nothing, I was still doing all of that mileage and then some every day I was there. So it is a different world, and I want more of that. I want more of that style because I get that not just in Hawaii, but in plenty of other places I've traveled. Hawaii is just my most recent one. And I want more of that for my clients. I want more of that for me. I want just more of that in general. And I think it starts with us, right? It starts with us pressuring our governments to make better infrastructure. And it starts with us pressuring the government at large to start actually caring. And, maybe RFK Jr. can make some leeway. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. It might go off the rails entirely. But maybe somewhere in this administration we'll get some of that. Maybe. Because while he has a lot of off-the-rail thoughts, he does have some decent ones that you can't really argue. So I don't know where this is going, and I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm just saying my own opinion. As a fitness coach and as a person who's going on their own transformation, I think we need more just general movement in life to try and tackle the obesity epidemic. And that's how I'm building my business. I'm not building it on you have to do this workout to get the perfect butt. I'm building it on hey, here's 10 minutes in between your games that you can go do this mini workout. I am building hey, let's do crunches on a ball. Let's swap your chair for a physio ball so that you can, work on your posture while you're gaming. I'm building that kind of business with my clients, and that's why I'm kind of rebranding to the fit-ish gamer. Because I don't support extreme methods of weight loss, and I don't support extreme methods of working out. I believe in walkable cities, and that's where I want my business to go, and that's where I want my clients to come from. The basics. I don't need any of the extreme stuff. I want to help people navigate the basics, because some of that is extremely overcomplicated in this online space. But that is all for today, and I appreciate you for being here as I am along on this journey. Every day is a new day in my brain right now, and that's kind of why I started this podcast, because in the next 6 months I want a lot to change, and I don't want to have to document that on my main YouTube channels or on my TikTok or things like that. And that's kind of where this podcast came in the first place. Will this podcast eventually get a new name? Maybe not, because I am full of chaos and fuckery, and that is proof by the fact that, I change the theme of this podcast every other day. And the whole point was to document this journey, and that's what I'm doing. So I appreciate you for being here. If you can resonate with some of the walkable city stories or just some of my stories as a business owner, feel free to hit that subscribe button and join us for future episodes talking about gaming, fitness, and everything in between when it comes to business on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And I appreciate you, and thank you for listening to my fuckery and enjoying the chaos.